On today's episode of Locked On Wild, there were no free agent fireworks for the Minnesota Wild this year. But is that really a bad thing?
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day, and we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we will take a look at some goalie rankings in the NHL that I think, quite bluntly, have Filip Gustavsson ranked way too low. We'll take a look at where he slotted in and whether or not it's accurate, inaccurate. We'll dive in. We'll also talk about the big fireworks from back in 2012, since we just had the 4th of July with, of course, Parise and Ryan Suter, and whether we learned anything from that experience and if that needed to have been replicated today. And we'll touch on Kirill Kaprizov's contract as well. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild. Hope everybody had a great 4th of July weekend. Nice, long weekend. Got some sun. I've got the sunglasses tan line on both sides of my face after getting out in the boat and such. But Alex Micheletti joining us here on a Monday edition of the show. And Alex, no fireworks this year for the Minnesota Wild, even though there was a lot of discussion about that on July 1st. And we'll talk more about that kind of in the middle of the show, the meaty middle of the show. But you shared some goalie rankings that really drew my attention in, because our favorite, Filip Gustavsson, in a list that was put together by JFresh, and actually it is a fan vote as well, 193,000 votes cast by 2,337 voters, had Filip Gustavsson 15th amongst goalies heading into the 2025 season. The top 32 goalies in the NHL, not necessarily all the starters, but the top 32. Gus at 15, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, after this past season, he should probably be ranked a little bit higher. I know his first year was kind of a dud, but this past season, he was phenomenal. He kept them in a playoff spot. I would certainly Swayman was at 9. I would put him above Swayman.
Yeah, and you look at the kind of in between 9 and 15, you've got Jordan Binnington at 14, Logan Thompson at 13. Logan Thompson had a fantastic year that nobody's talking about. So right. I can't make any issue there. Dustin Wolf, who basically pulled the entire Calgary Flames team on his back, had a great year. Yeah, Jacob Markstrom was injured for large portions of the year. He also played very well. Then you got Thatcher Demko and Jeremy Swayman. I feel like Gus should be top 10, because once you get into that top 10 area, it's all equity. You've got Linus Ullmark at 8, UC Saros at 7, Ilya Sorokin at 6, Jake Ottinger at 5, Sergei Bobrovsky at 4, Igor Shesterkin at 3, Andrei Vasilevsky at 2, and Connor Hellebuck at 1. I can't make a compelling case to jump any higher than 8, but I feel like he definitely should be in the top 10 at least.
Yeah, he was just phenomenal, right? I mean, everything that this team dealt with injury-wise, and especially on the back end there, and not having your best player in Kirill for and your best defensive center and Ek for a while. And as we know, this team just cannot stay healthy ever. It's unbelievable, right? Just always hurt. We already have Brodin hurt already, so he's going to have to deal with that coming into the season. And we'll see if he can repeat it. And there was question marks about his fitness coming into the season, and he kind of bat those all away. And he was locked in for the majority of the season, I thought.
Yeah, he did a great job of just, and especially during that stretch in December and January, and a little bit into February too, where the team just was not scoring any goals.
No.
You're winning games 2-1, 1-0. It seemed like every time there was a big game that needed to be had, Gus had it. And to the point that we had, I think, like a 3-week stretch during the season where Marc-Andre Fleury hardly started a game, like right after the Four Nations face-off was done.
In his last season too, like he kind of just had to ride Gus at that point, even though it was Fleury's last dance.
Yeah, it was. We got to get into the playoffs on the back of the one who got us here, and I don't know, like it is interesting because you look at all of those guys at the top. And the thing that kind of jumps out to me is the dollar signs associated with all of those types of goalies, whether it be Hellebuck, whether it be Vasilevsky, whether it be Shesterkin, Bobrovsky, Ottinger. They all have large dollar amounts associated with them. And Filip Gustavsson's on the last year of his current deal, which means that it's going to be time for him to either get a new one here or a new one elsewhere. And I know we're spending a lot of our attention on Kirill Kaprizov's extension, which we'll talk about later. Filip Gustavsson extension is a pretty important one too, considering Jesper Wallstedt had a lost season just based on what happened in Iowa. It would really go a long way to have something concrete in the net for the next couple of years.
Oh yeah, especially after all these other goalies have signed extensions, so there's nobody big time free agents if you trade Gus. And so the hope is that you can get the Kaprizov deal done before Leon Draisaitl, who didn't get re-signed until September when he signed his gigantic extension. So hopefully they can get Kirill's done, and then they still have to figure out the Rossi situation too. It seems like they have completely bungled that, and now they're in a iron stalemate of basically it seems like he wanted 7, the team wants to keep him at 5, so it's crazy that there's this big of a stalemate over $2 million a year. Hopefully they can just meet in the middle there and get this finished. It is kind of getting ridiculous.
Yeah, it's dragging on to the point that you've got other shows saying, here come the offer sheets, But he's not getting offer sheeted.
And as we've seen, or I saw Elliot Freeman say this on Spin Chicklets that teams are wary of giving up a first round pick because they know Gavin McKenna, who just committed to Penn State for this season. So awesome for college hockey and college hockey fans, that they don't want to give up their first round pick if their team, flames out and is in the lottery, because then you get a chance at, this generation's, this upcoming, generation's Connor McDavid. I mean, McKenna is that good.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how this all plays out. It just, like you said, it'd be nice if they could just find the common ground, find the number, somebody make a small concession. But this has been, this is like what you see in Major League Baseball periodically, where the players from each side just stand on the foul lines after the national anthem. Nobody wants to blink. Neither side wants to blink and show that they were the ones that gave in this instance. So this is going.
It's too bad he doesn't have arbitration, just so that could get settled out. But arbitrations also really can become nasty too, because you hear the truth of what the team thinks of a player, and if they don't think they're as highly thought of as the players sees them themselves or the agent too, they're going to remember that in future contract negotiations, or either ask for demand for a trade, or not even re-sign there when they become a chance at a free agent again. So it's almost kind of a blessing that they don't go to arbitration. But right now too, it's almost like an arbitration without the arbitration, because they're just in a stalemate, and neither side wants to budge. And to not, when we last heard publicly from Guerin, and from what has been reported by Mike Russo, that they haven't talked in 3 weeks, going on a month now, that's crazy. At some point they're going to have to get this, I can't see Marco ever holding out. He doesn't seem like the type of guy to hold out, but it's just very, very strange. And it's hard to get other business done without, both of these, upcoming, contracts, not figured out. And then Gus is probably like, can you guys get this business done? So the attention is on me. I know I'm not priority one right now.
Yeah, he wants to get his done too.
Right.
And
I didn't think about it. I get it. Especially, he has a young family, and he's got to figure out, long term, is it going to be in Minnesota or not?
Well, we will find out shortly. But there's, I loved when you said when the summer started, this team is never dull. There is never a lack of things to talk about, and it just continues on a day-to-day basis, which is why we have so much ground that we cover doing these episodes. And we're going to talk about what has now become the infamous phrase, July 1st is going to be like Christmas. We're gonna talk it out on today's episode of Locked On Wild right after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Whether you are placing a same-game parlay or riding out a bet into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes you feel like part of the action. That's one of my favorite routes, honestly, to go, is the anytime home run. You place your bet before the game starts, and you've got 9 innings to see whether or not your chosen player is going to get the job done. If it's Nick Castellanos, just pick an appropriate day for him to send one deep. But if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Once again, make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Reminder, we've got our live show for you coming up tonight at 8 p.m. right here on YouTube, as Denny has been thinking about the potential of the best player in the world to get traded. No, we're not talking about Kirill Kaprizov, going a little higher up the ladder. So make sure to tune in at 8 p.m. tonight right here on YouTube to find out who. Can't imagine who that would be. Alex, we got to talk about this, because I and everydayers have heard me make this exact rant a few different times. There's so many things that this franchise does that I wish would just be foot in mouth moments that could be eliminated. Because whether it be July 1st is going to be like Christmas, and we heard that all the way down the runway for before the season even started. The 5-year plan, we're carrying 3 goalies for the duration of the season. Hey, Jesper, congratulations. Go get yourself an apartment in St. Paul. Like, just don't overpromise. I run into that myself. Don't overpromise. And free agency came and went, and the Wilds traded for Vladimir Tarasenko. They signed Nico Sturm. The likes of Sam Bennett, Brock Besser, Brock Nelson, Nikolai Ehlers, and more came and went, and the Minnesota Wild forgot to put the presents under the tree. But is that really is it a bad thing? Like, I understand, and I put myself in this category as well. You wanted to see the team do a little something, something big, something to say, hey, we got these restraints off we got these restraints off. The shackles are gone. But I think the underlying message is important here is free agency is never the route that you want to go to build a team. Ask the Nashville Predators how that went last year.
Yeah, it was a complete disaster. There's also, he talked, Bill, we can be critical of the moves here, but, you take a look at, a team like the Boston Bruins, who gave Tanner Jeannot a 5-year contract at 3.4. I mean, what other team was competing? There wasn't a bidding war for Tanner Jeannot. So that can really affect you too by giving out just bloated contracts that don't fit at all. Boston has done it in the past too. They gave David Backes a ton of money when it didn't make any sense. So you have to be careful on who you give out money to in free agency. But I get it too that when you hear Christmas in July and you get a fourth line center and a guy in Vlad Tarasenko that's way past his prime. When he was with the Blues, he did terrorize the Wild and was an amazing player, but he's gone through significant shoulder injury that I think has really affected him ever since. You can take a look at what happened to Matt Dumba after he got his injury. He's never been the same, and it's it was certainly a big gamble to acquire Tarasenko. I know it's just a 1 year. We'll see if he can refine his form, but that's saying a lot after 11 goal season. He's going to be 34 during the season, so I don't see it, but if it's if he does play well, it's certainly a big boost. They can finally kick Johansson down to the fourth line. Who would ever thought? We thought he'd still be stuck in that second line winger spot, but it'll be at least Tarasenko to start the season. So yeah, we'll see what Vladdy has left in the tank.
I think at this point, it certainly seems like the path that the Wild are going is they're trying to get above water to start the season and are hoping that a team like Buffalo, like any of the other teams that are right now saying, oh, we're not selling. We're not tapping out at this point. Well, good luck with that. Hoping that a team like that falls out of the race, that a superstar player gets fed up. They're hoping for a redo of the Jack Eichel trade.
Yeah.
But here's my warning there is you may not have to pay the same amount of term that you would for a free agent, but you're going to have to pay in draft capital and draft prospects, assets. You're going to have to pay that way. And if this is the master plan, is we're going to make our big splash at the trade deadline, and that comes and goes, and we hear the same thing of like the prices were just outrageous. Billy, the prices are going to be high no matter if you wait until the offseason, no matter if you wait till the trade deadline, no matter if you wait until the night of the draft. The prices are always going to be high. You have to be willing to pay to get the type of player that is going to finally fix that second line spot or give you a bona fide top line player. They don't come around often, and you have to be willing to pay to get them.
Yeah, and it's great. It's great to have prospects, but a lot. It takes a while for them to, a lot of them to be NHL ready, right? And look at Florida's not afraid to trade, picks, and they were able to get Brad Marchand, and they won a Stanley Cup, based a lot on his play. I mean, he had 2 game winners in the Stanley Cup. So you can't be afraid to, to go all in or go heavy in. And, all we hear about is this next upcoming class too. Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel, but are they really going to want to come to Minnesota? Probably not. We would love to have Jack Eichel here, and the Boston connection, of course, with Bill Guerin, and Eichel's, Eichel went to BU, but Guerin went to BC, but they're both from Massachusetts, and you got Boldy from Mass too. But yeah, I mean, if they want to improve, they're going to have to make big trades, and it's too bad that a lot of the deals that he's made, and it seems like it's going league wide, is these no moves complicate things. I get it, but if they want, all we hear about is that they're gonna make a big, they didn't make a move in free agency for this reason to go at the deadline, and they kept some cap space too to start occurring during the season. But as we know too, this team does not stay healthy, and for Brodin to not even get hurt on the ice, it was off the ice, or to re-aggravate just by working out. What does that say for when the season starts? So I mean, Jared, I'm worried about Jared Spurgeon playing 82. So we think the back end is set. We have no idea, since we already have one injury already.
Yeah, you just can't make it up. But
no.
Again, the point to hammer home here is, if Bill Guerin, if that's the route that he wants to go, of we're going to make our big addition at the trade deadline, then bleep and do it.
Right.
Because now you don't have this curtain to hide behind of the cap hits. Now it's like, if you don't do it, there's nowhere to turn.
Colorado's they're not getting worse. Dallas is not getting worse. I know there's a lot of chaos, but they still have so much talent on that team. Winnipeg just had the MVP, Connor Hellebuck. I know he struggles in the playoffs, but regular season, he's absolute dynamite. So, you're competing with those teams, in the top 3 right there in the Central. And you're almost like, all right, we got to hope for a wild card, and that, there's chaos right there, as we've seen this past season. It took to the last game, it took to beat Anaheim in overtime to officially get in. So it's going to be a battle for those last couple spots.
Yes, it will be. And we will have to just see how things play out. But I did want to spend the rest of the show just kind of looking back. Obviously, on July 4th, we had a pretty notable couple of signings that happened in 2012. We should probably talk about those and what we've learned since, as we finish today's episode of Locked On Wilds after this. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Once again, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We've got our live show coming up tonight at 8 p.m. And as I teased earlier, Denny's got an idea in regards to one of the best players in the league. Could potentially be on the move. So stay tuned tonight, 8 p.m. for all of that information. Alex, have you ever heard of Zach Parise and Ryan Suter? The name rings a bell, right? 2012, July 4th. I remember exactly where I was. I was camping. And I remember hearing on the radio that the Minnesota Wild had signed Zach Parise and Ryan Suter to matching 13-year, $98 million contracts. And I just wanted to talk about this today because there is some revisionist history that is making the rounds today, because on social media it was shared, hey, this happened, and there were a lot of people saying, oh, that's the worst day in the history of the Minnesota Wild. And I'm like, okay, hold on for a second. We can question the outcome, we can question the results, but if we go back to 2012 and recall, the Minnesota Wild were in dire need of something to put them on the map, something to pull them up from the bottom of the heap. And Zach Parise and Ryan Suter were those players. If you want to point to anything that went wrong, it was the fact that the league decided to penalize the Minnesota Wilds after the contracts had already started with the cap recapture. So that part we can hate, but I still think that was the right decision at the time to go get those guys and to kind of usher in a new era of Wild hockey.
Yeah, they needed a new superstar. They got two, and I'm sure you could ask the season ticket people, if they didn't get those two, their jobs would have been a lot more difficult. So I mean, in jersey sales and everything, I mean, to not only just get one, to get both of them was just unbelievable. And yeah, no one saw the like you mentioned that the cap recapture, it kind of screwed them over in the end. But at least they went for it. You hate when teams don't go for it, right? And just say, yeah, we'll go with what we have, and we'll just have all go young. They went for it, and that's what you see. The great teams now that are winning cups, they go all in, they go for it, and they worry about the future when the future arrives. And now that's where the Wild are at. And we hear so much about state taxes, no state taxes for these teams. That helps a lot, but you have to have great front offices too. And we'll see if Bill Guerin can figure that out. They went into free agency, and their top options signed back with the teams that were on. And you have to plan for that kind of stuff. It seemed like they were shell shocked from that. And now I think the Tarasenko trade was kind of a panic move, because they realized that nobody they liked was still left on the free agency board, and
got to do something.
We'll go with the guy that has been a Wild killer in Vlad Tarasenko, who has a lot of tread on his tires, and we'll see if being around a couple of other Russians and his buddy Kaprizov and mentoring Yurov, we'll see if that can do the trick. That's a huge gamble, I think, but that's what the move he made. And Nico Sturm was a fan favorite here, and the penalty kill, as we know, is atrocious, has always been atrocious in the Bill Guerin era. So we'll see. He can at least win face-offs, so that is tremendous, since this team has so much difficulties with that. So I like that move, at least just for the specific role he's in. It's not going to give you a lot of A's in the off season, like publications of how would you grade the Wild off season, but he at least fills a role that they desperately needed.
Yeah, 100%. And the Wild are hoping that before next year, their impending free agent does exactly what all these other impending free agents have done. That being, of course, Kirill Kaprizov, who, from the sounds of it, the negotiations have begun, but it's going to take time. And Bill Guerin had another foot and mouth moment when he said, don't panic if the deal's not signed on July 1st, which, how about you just don't say those things?
Right. Because then whenever you hear that, then people panic. So don't even mention it. That's it just makes you think, oh, he's gonna go, just like Gabrick did. But he wants to be or it seems like he's going to be the highest paid player until Connor McDavid signs his deal. So get ready for 15, 16 million. It's crazy to think, right? But you almost kind of have to do it. They've never had a player like this before, and you have to reward him. And it's, from all we've seen, he loves Minnesota and in being here. But you hear Bill Guerin say this all the time: is we have our models of where we fit players in their contracts. So that kind of just is like, oh, they're set in stone on a certain number. So when you have two of them like that, and right now with the Rossi craziness too, it's gonna take some time. I don't see either of them happening anytime soon. One clue that we could watch for, and I'm sure our viewers, listeners will be scouring his social media and pictures. If he's back in Minnesota, then things are good. That because when he does sign this, they want to make it a huge deal, and they want him to be in Minnesota. And right now he's training in Russia. I saw a picture of him last week with Evgeny Malkin training in gym. The pictures of the Russians together always crack me up, of what they're doing. And
just
we've seen him in the wilderness, out in lake, rivers, and so I'm glad he's back home enjoying his time, because I know in the past he hasn't been able to get back there. So for good for him. They'll get it figured out one way or another.
Yeah, and it's always going to be, is it better to pay a little more for a guy like that and keep him, as opposed to letting him go and trying to figure out how to fill that amount of money that was not used? So just get it done. Don't panic. And we'll, I guess, just see how this plays out between now and the start of the
Christmas in
season.
August.
How about just stop saying things and trying to figure out, like, just stop trying to overpromise. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly.
But that's our episode here for today. Appreciate everybody tuning in, as you do each and every day of the week. Once again, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.